Raven's Ramblings, Musings of a Southern Witch. I'm Raven, your host, your conductor, your warden, I don't know, whatever. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the different elements and their correspondences. We're also going to go over a little bit of different timing aspects of the craft or my craft, or just different like days of the weeks and moon phases and stuff. um, I just want to say real quick, thank y'all for listening. This has been well a journey for sure, something I've thought about doing for a while, and now I'm actually doing it, and that's pretty good for my little ADHD brain. So I appreciate y'all coming on this journey with me. So, starting off with elements. Our first element we're going to go with is air. It corresponds with the direction of the east. Yellow is its color, and we talked about a little bit of this on the last episode when we were casting our circles and stuff. But so with east, it's kind of like beginnings. It focuses on our thoughts and our brains, and it's kind of a youthful element, I think. It's just kind of, well, honestly, light and airy. Springtime is also associated with it, and in the mornings, because that's that new beginning of each day. So if that's the type of working that you're wanting to do, talking to the east and invoking air can help bring about those new beginnings and set those intentions in a good direction, kind of thing. The next one, and all of this is super simplified. There's a crap ton of information out in the world, and this is just base stuff. Okay, so don't think that that's all there is about it, because if I tried to go over every single thing, well, these will be some exceptionally uh, long episodes, and nobody's going to want to listen to that. So the next element is fire. That's related to the south, mainly with the color red. I usually see it kind of like a red orange kind of color for some reason. A little more orangey than red, but that's just me. It's also associated with summer. I mean, it's fire. It's hot. I'm in the south. Everything is just hot in the summer down here. Um, it also kind of corresponds with the afternoon. Not sure why, but that's what it that's what it's related to. Um, so when you think of fire and stuff like that, you also think of passion. So if you're trying to invoke something's passion, then you're going to pay more attention to the fire element and enthusiasm. Well, of course, that also kind of goes hand in hand with passion. If you're enthusiastic about something, then you're passionate about something. Um, it also correlates to maturity. So you've gone from that sweet little innocent child, and you're starting that mature step, and it kind of growing in that direction. Um, Not quite old age or anything, but like I want to say a young 20, 25 year old kind of maturity, but sometimes those are a little youthful too. But it is walking in those steps to maturity. So if you're working with something that is not going to be what you would consider an instantaneous, now there's nothing in the craft that is instantaneous, but a quicker spell, like you've got a doctor's appointment over the next week and you want to do just a quick little thing for that, that's pretty close in the future. But if you're looking for something long term, uh, you would look for something with a little bit more maturity to it, a little more time to mellow and get in its place. So from fire, we're going to move over to water, which is the west, of course, water west. And blue is its color. I see that nice, that sea foamy color, when you're watching the ocean. Maybe sea foam is really more of a green, but that's not the point. See, there's my ADHD again. So kind of a tealy colored for me personally, but it's blue and it's also associated with autumn. Where things are starting to kind of ease down. The heat is kind of going away here in the south, and we'll get like 3-4 days of actual autumn, and that's what it makes me think of. It also correlates to the evening time. So we're past that afternoon. We're coming into the late. Now, here in the south, the evening in the summertime especially, it is a little bit later, but you know, not quite twilight, around dusk, that kind of thing. So, water is also tied to our emotions. I mean, as humans, we are majority made up of water. So, we have really close ties to that element just as a species. Um, so, people, and there goes my brain train again, uh, feel different things about that, especially when it rains. People's emotions get a little ticky when there's a thunderstorm, or if they see a beautiful river, or in the ocean and stuff, because we are connected as a species to those things of water. Um, so yeah, the next one is Earth. I realized that West didn't make a whole lot of sense. I kind of went on a weird thing, but you see what I'm saying. Uh, so back to Earth. Sorry, Earth is connected to the north, the color of green, and then winter, which I've always thought was funny because in the winter everything kind of turns brown, but then you have like the holly trees and stuff, and the evergreens, and those are green throughout the winter. So that's kind of what I think of when I think of north. I think of the big evergreens, pine trees, and stuff like that. A Christmas tree, which, well, we'll talk about those kinds of holidays on a later episode about what came from what and so forth. But Earth is also connected to the night, um, wisdom. It connects to our physical selves, our physical bodies. And wisdom is one of those things that also comes with old age. So North is also connected to the old age. Now, uh, North is considered a direction of power for witches. I personally feel more connected to a southern direction than a northern direction, but that's just me. I'm also a Leo, so there's a whole lot of fire happening there. Uh, but with Earth connecting to our physical selves, one of the ways that I feel like we connect to that is grounding. Okay? So by grounding, I mean just kind of taking all that excess energy, all that static that may be running through you, and pushing it down through your body and pushing it down into the earth and letting it dissipate. Because that's something that earth can do for us, because there is that connection. It can pull all that nonsense out and just kind of push it away, so you don't have to carry all that static around. So now these are just basic guidelines. Like I said, there's a crap ton of information out there. Some paths rely on these things very strictly. Some do not. It just depends on what you are wanting to do, because, well, honestly, half the time if I'm not in my house, I don't know which way's north. I don't. I am directionally challenged, just out and about. Now I can read a map and get anywhere that I need to, but knowing cardinal directions, no, that's just not going to happen for me personally. But get to know these elements. Spend a little time, research them, look into them a little bit more, see what other correlations there are. There may be that one little spark about fire that you've always wondered, why do I stare into the fireplace and watch those flames flicker around? And it's just because you have a connection to that, and it may feel a different way to you than it feels to someone else. That's totally okay. Everybody gets to do what they want to do. And, if you're Wiccan, as long as it ain't hurting nobody, do it anyway. It's fine. So take that time, do what works best for you. Do a little extra research, all that good stuff. And some people pay way more attention to it than others, and some of us only pay attention to it whenever we're doing a particular ritual. Some people actually set their whole homes up based on directions, and the flow of energy in and out of their homes, like the Chinese tradition of feng shui. Sorry, y'all. It's 2:30 in the morning. My brain is not braining real good tonight. But feng shui is directing those energies around your home to bring about good fortune and get rid of bad things, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just the practice of witchcraft that has correlations to elements and directions and stuff. It's many different religions. I mean, even something like Christianity. The majority of cemeteries and graveyards that are Christian based, the tombstones are always going to face the east. A lot of people don't know that, but they do. They try to always face the east because that's where the sun comes up and that's where Jesus is supposed to come back from. I'm not judging, whatever. So, but just take your time, see which ones kind of correlate to you, which ones resonate with you, and just kind of go from there and have fun with it. Maybe the West doesn't feel, as watery to you. Some people like to switch them between West and East, where they feel like West is more air and East is more water. I mean, personally, I don't see it that way, but who's to say it's not going to work for you? Okay? So, moving on from our elements, we're going to move into different timing aspects of the craft. Now, some have very specific timing. They know when the full moon is rising to the minute, and they have a countdown, and that's the moment it hits 100%, they immediately start their ritual and kind of go from that, or whichever moon phase they're trying to focus on. We'll talk about that in just a second. And some people will just be like, it's a Tuesday, I've got a few minutes, let me go do a little witchy stuff right now. I am B. I am the one that's gonna be, oh crap, it's a Tuesday and it's a waxing moon, but I need to get rid of something, and I don't have time to wait until the waning moon, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and we're going to hope for the best and put my intentions out there and see what happens. I don't always recommend that because that works for me because I thrive in a little bit of chaos. That's not going to work for a very type A OCD personality. That's not going to work for them. So, talking about moon phases, the waxing moon, I don't know why I always want to start with the waxing moon, but I do. So, waxing moon is when the moon is going from the new moon to getting larger, that kind of stuff. It's building upon itself. You want to do more constructive magic in this phase. Attracting things. You want to build things. And I say build things. You're building energy. You're growing. You're growing those intentions. You're growing that manifestation kind of stuff. So if you're trying to manifest a new job, then you've taken the time to start looking, and you have your heart set on this particular job, and you've brought all these different things together. You've updated your resume, you've got it ready to send out. Now you're putting all your hope and and love and power and stuff behind this, and building that on top of each other and sending it out into the universe. Um, so after the waxing moon comes the full moon. Okay, so the full moon, a lot of people honestly rest. You know, me personally, I will, if I have new crystals and stuff, or if I have crystals that I've used, I will take those outside and lay them on my back porch and let them absorb the moon, and charge them. I also put tools out there. I make moon water, so you're just going to take, I prefer a glass container, um, because, well, it just seems right. I don't know. Jars, I've got jars and bottles and weird things, and they're all glass. So, and you put that out and let it charge under the full moonlight. Now, something I have started doing, because I don't always get to spend that time out in the full moon, just because I work night shift, in healthcare. So a lot of times I'm at work and I don't get that time to harness that energy. So I have started taking string and different types of cord, excuse me, um, and taking it out in the moonlight and tying knots in it to harness that power, so I can have that full moon energy for when I do have time to sit down and work that difficult magic. I if I'm going to do difficult magic, more than likely it's going to be in or around the full moon, because the energy is higher. Um, so if I don't get to have that time out in the moonlight, when I do get to, I try to harness a little bit of that extra power for later on. So I take those cords, I stand out in the moonlight, I close my eyes, kind of meditate for a few minutes. I hold my cord or string up in the beam of light, and I will tie a knot in it. And I will do, several knots along the length of a cord. Or some people like to braid it, and they will harness that energy within the braid. Um, so some people will just take that braid, just like it is, and just incorporate it in a spell, somehow, whether they burn it or just tie up a jar with it, or whatever. Me personally, if I am wanting to actually use that energy, then once I've tied my cord and knots and stuff, and let's say it's a week or two later, and I'm like, oh, I completely forgot to do that particular ritual, that particular spell when the full moon was happening, but I have my moon cord. So then I will get my moon cord out, I will set up all my stuff, and when I'm ready to kind of invoke that extra oomph or extra little special power, I guess, of the full moon, then I will untie one of those knots and visualize the energy of the moon in that knot. So when I untie it, that energy is now free, and I can put it toward my particular intentions that I'm working with. Now, whether that's right or wrong, well, who knows? I think that's kind of a personal preference kind of thing. It's something that I've just recently started doing. I like how it feels. It feels right for me. And there's probably people out there that are going to listen to this and go, what the hell is she talking about now? And that's alright, because that's what works for me. If it doesn't resonate with you or it doesn't work for you, honey, don't do it. You ain't got to do it just because I do it or because anybody does it or doesn't do it. You do you. Don't let people be bossing you around. Well, depends. No, that's not the point. So that's how I bring the full moon a little bit further past. And then some people are very particular. They're going to be the minute it hits full, that's when they do their stuff. They can't do it a minute after. they they can't do it the next day, but there's really nothing saying you can't. You know, it is your personal preference. Some people think that the full moon is only the one day. Some people think it's the day before and the day after. Some people think that it's 3 days before and 3 days after. You do you, okay? Because as long as your intentions are where they're supposed to be, you know what energy you're trying to pull. Who's to say it's not going to work? Okay? So, past the full moon, then we're going to go into the waning moon or the waning moon, depending on who you really want to ask. Now, this is for more destructive magic. You know, like I said, the waxing is more constructive, the waning is more destructive. This is for destroying ties to something or banishing bad energy. A lot of people do a cleansing in this time because it is good for banishing. It's good for releasing, letting go of those things that no longer serve you, you know, letting go of those people that no longer serve you, cutting those relationship ties. It a lot of times a good cord cutting ritual is done during this moon phase because that just kind of wraps it all up in a little bow, snips that cord, and releases all of that all at one time. Um, and honestly, you can do whatever you want in any of these moon phases. These are just basic guidelines, okay? So, waning moon phase, we're getting rid of. This is where the moon is getting smaller. We've hit the full moon, and now it's starting to decrease in size because now we're moving toward the new moon. Okay? Now, the new moon is the actual beginning of our lunar cycle. Right? So, the new moon is for new beginnings. It's for setting your intentions. It's really good for grounding because it's the beginning. Boop, right there, beginning. So we're going to start this beginning with grounding, going outside, putting our feet in the dirt or in the grass and pushing all that extra energy and starting out with a clean slate. Okay? And then you're going to set your intentions for the month or whatever. Now, our lunar cycle works on 28 days, roughly, depending on which calendar you're looking at and all that stuff, and leap years and daylight savings and all that, which has always been kind of funny because 28 days, what else is 28 days? All the women are going, well, shit. So that makes way more sense, and that's why we are all kind of influenced by the moon. So, new moon, we're setting those new intentions, getting ready to go into the next phase, and then the full moon, and then the waning moon, and so forth. So there, all of this comes around to, depending on what you're trying to do, what your intentions are, figuring out what moon phase works best for what you're trying to do is just one more tool you can use. Okay, so, and then it even gets even more detailed. You can decide what day of the week works best for whatever it is you're trying to do. So if you can get something that needs to be done on a full moon on a Saturday, well, then this one here in April was perfect, depending on what you were trying to do. Maybe you were trying to do a protection spell. Then it would have been perfect because Saturdays are good for protection and so forth. And then you got the full moon, which is a ton of energy. So, I mean, using all these things, like days of the week, the moon phases, the different times of day, horoscope signs, zodiacs, that kind of stuff. Having all these things and their correspondence connect can make your intentions and manifestations easier or more powerful. But you don't have to do that. It's like If you were going to build a swimming pool in your backyard, you could go out there with a kitchen spoon and dig that hole. Now, it might take you 42 years, but you could make it happen, right? Or you could get all the extra tools and figure out when the rainy season was and when the drier season was and these kinds of things, and get you an excavator back there and dig that hole in a week. See what I'm saying? So instead of having to wait that longer amount of time, you've been able to utilize more tools that work for your intentions, and it happens faster or more powerful. Okay? So going back to those days of the weeks, in Buckland's book, he's got a quick little list here. Monday is ruled by the moon. It's good for magic working with merchandise, dreams, theft. I'm not sure what's happening there, but what ifs. Tuesday is ruled by Mars. It correlates with matrimony, war, enemies, prison. There's some strange stuff in there, isn't there? Wednesday is ruled by Mercury. Has to do with debt and fear and loss. Thursdays are ruled by Jupiter. Correlates with honor, riches, clothing, desires. Friday is ruled by Venus. Everybody knows what that one is. That's our loved one. Friendship and strangers are also included on Fridays. Saturday is ruled by Saturn. Correlates with life, building, doctrine, and protection. See, there's that protection. Sunday, of course, is ruled by the sun and works with fortune, hope, and money. So you can look at these things and look at your elements and then look at your timing, moon phase wise, and just see what you think is going to work best. Okay? And honestly, if you are a busy ADHD person like me, it may not even matter, because it may just happenstance be a Tuesday at 4 p.m. and go, oh shit, I forgot to do such and such. Let me go run in my altar room and do that real quick. So you break out that white candle, you throw it in your sand, throw a little rosemary on it, turn on the electric candles too, because you don't want 14 candles going when you have cats in the house. That's just a little tip. You don't want that. Light that white candle, throw those intentions out there, and just ride that wave and hope for the best. That's that chaos journey. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not for everybody, I promise, because, man, I get irritated at myself sometimes. I'm like, you know what? Dumbass, you knew better. You said last time you were going to do better on this, and then here we are next month still forgetting to do stuff. So don't be me, learn from me. Like in healthcare, I'm a do as I say, not as I do healthcare person. So I think that's all we're going to talk about this week. Next week, I think I want to kind of go over some myths and stuff that I've been hearing. I've heard some crazy ones here lately, and I think I kind of want to review those, especially for someone who's new, who's never really dabbled in this kind of stuff and doesn't really have a lot of information. I want to dispel some of those rumors that Hollywood and just word of mouth, especially here in the South, oh, the stuff they come up with. So we're going to talk about that, and who knows what else may come up. So, well, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me tonight, and I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.